today is like an inaugural episode because we've got Lyulkin here.
The Lyulkin. New character unlocked.
Yeah. He's actually the final boss. He is the final food boss. Dean Lyulkin is my best friend for, I don't know, since
It's
19.
pretty hard math.
Yeah, now it is. It didn't used to
Yeah.
be, but as we get older, I think you came to America
December of 88.
December of 88. So I would have met you in 89.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So
1989,
Yeah.
not 1889 for everyone
late-
watching.
in the late 1900s, as my kids like to tell me. And some of you may know we started Cardiff back in 04. From 04 to March of 07, I was pestering Dean. I don't think we had text messages back then. Maybe it was texting you,
Is
but
that pretext?
it might have been. I don't know. It was pre-iPhone. iPhone's 2008.
Yeah, maybe it was just phone calls.
It was a lot of phone calls. And I would pester you saying like, I'm building something, and you're like, well, I'm working at Fisher Investments. I'm one of like the first people to be given ownership in this company. This is major. I'm doing something big. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm onto something. Anyway, took some
Yeah,
convincing.
and I was going into these things, these fish bowls. Essentially, they were little tiny glass conference rooms that could barely fit 1.5 people.
Yeah.
And then I would like talk to you on the conference phone.
Right.
In there.
That's how you took the call.
But like they knew, right? And they were listening. So it was kind of an awkward thing.
Oh, no. Is that right?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Oh,
Yeah.
that
I don't
sucks.
think they were pleased with my behavior, which is understandable.
Yeah, because I would have you. I even remember the phone calls. Right, I would be speaking to you for at least an hour on each call, and then
Yeah.
you would give me some advice, and then as soon as we would get off the phone, I'd rush over to the people who worked at Cardiff, and I'd be like, "Well, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna run things."
Yeah.
It was
And there was like a point of frustration for me with my career, which I think was just the manifestation of a impetuous child.
because
right?
how old were you?
I don't know, 26, 25, 26, 27,
Yeah.
something along those lines, right? All you 25, 26, 27-year-olds, don't be so impetuous, right? But, we didn't have anyone to give us advice, right?
Yeah,
We didn't have parents that understood the types of issues that we were dealing with in business and making these kinds of life decisions. They were just different.
our
right?
parents were in the Matrix, right? Our
Matrix.
parents were in the Matrix. They were
Yeah.
right? Wearing a black suit to work, briefcase in hand, 9 to 5, clock in, clock out.
Yeah, they're like the poor dad of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, I never read that book.
Me neither.
No?
I don't think it's very good.
Yeah.
But the point was well made.
No.
That the rich dad has very different things to say to his son than the poor dad, which doesn't make the poor dad any less important.
Yeah.
Just very different.
Yeah.
Very different perspectives that the two dads have.
Yeah.
You need to learn both.
Yeah. I guess, people who have parents that are in business, specifically own their own business or operate a large business, those children have a unique vantage point about life that can only be gained either from 2 decades in business on your own, right? Or a parent breaking down what they go through on a daily basis and explaining to their children, essentially, right, a cheat code on how to hack the matrix, right, and create wealth for yourself. But that was kind of a long intro. But anyway, this is Dean Lyulkin. He is my co-pilot, both professionally and in my personal life as well. We everything we do, we kind of do together. And it was funny because when we started this podcast, I'd been telling Dean that I was really interested in doing a podcast. And you were very supportive. You're like, well, what else are you doing?
Yeah, I think
do something.
that was a good idea.
Yeah. And I remember telling Lev, shout out to Lev, the human manifestation of AI.
EP Lev.
Yeah. Lev has many hats. But I remember telling Lev that we should do it, and we used some website. I remember we went on some website to look for podcasting studios.
Shout out to Coca-Cola. Diet Coke.
Okay. He's not learning.
I'm new to this.
He's not learning.
Relax.
Got to make money first, bro. We can't just like give away sponsors.
Gosh, Warren Buffett drinks a lot of cherry Coke.
I think he's a major. I think
he probably gets free cherry Coke.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, we went on some website to see what podcasting studios were like available in our area. I think that was like as far as we got. And then I started talking to Josh, who's my co-host for Stern Talk. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know a studio in San Diego. Let's go there right now." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean right now?"
Slow down.
Yeah. It got very exciting very quickly. It's like when you tell someone like, "Yeah, I was thinking of jumping out of an airplane, going skydiving." They're like, "Oh, great. I've
Put
got
a blindfold on you, put in the back of the car, throw you in the plane, then push you out.
Yeah.
Boom.
It was kind of like that. So, but Dean was super supportive, and yeah, as I mentioned, he's my co-pilot in business. We co-CEO the business together, and here we are today, getting Dean actually on the podcast. We did what? We did the Mikey G podcast, which is actually your friend.
Yeah, Mike Georgopoulos. He's the CEO of RMD Group.
Yeah, which is a cool San Diego company, cool hospitality.
They own some
group.
amazing venues in San Diego.
Yeah. And that was actually your guest. That was a cool interview. And then we did the Preciado, Albert Preciado. You were there for that one too.
That was the more interesting guest that we've had so far.
Yeah. He's it's funny because it's a good segue into what I think we wanted to talk about on today's episode, which is one, how we got into podcasting, but two, how we kind of surveyed the land, right? The lay of the land on Instagram and all these podcasting. Do you call them characters or a characterization of a human? I don't know. Like
characters.
A caricature. Is that the word?
Yeah,
that might be French, but it's like when you go to Seaport Village or something, and like somebody's like drawing like a
exaggerated eyes and eyebrows, big hair,
right? The 1945 Hitler propaganda poster type thing.
Yeah.
In any event, but we've seen so many characters on Instagram and how they leverage their podcast to, one, create a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, as we well know now, right? The personal brand is the foundation for selling something, right?
It's always inextricably tied
Yeah.
to some kind of business proposition.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk about that, because I think a lot of people, they tune into these podcasts and they're kind of not realizing, sort of what they're buying.
Yeah, or what the real purpose is.
Okay, better said.
Yeah.
Better said what the real purpose is. So it's like, if I was to divide some of these podcasters up into categories, I think, when we're talking about like the self-help / entrepreneurial podcasts that exist today, I would say that, at least from my perspective, that a large part of those podcasts are filled with real estate people. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I don't know. Because the self-help part, I feel like, isn't particularly industry specific.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Maybe just the ones I'm sort of tuning into or seeing, they're like, it's motivational content. It wants to get you pumped.
Yeah.
It wants you to get you to believe in yourself. And then once you believe in yourself, then it's like, well, invest in my
It's time to
fund.
buy an Airbnb.
Right,
It's
yeah. It's funny. The Airbnb thing it's like a relic from the past now.
Yep.
I remember just a year ago, Instagram being littered. I don't really use TikTok, but Instagram being littered with 20-something-year-old kids. And they would say, well, how many Airbnbs do you? I own 100. I own 200. I own 400. I own 600. Having these massive, seemingly massive real estate holdings, being super young, and being leveraged to the hilt. I had no idea how they did it, but there was some sort of coming to God moment where that all stopped. What was that?
I think it's the Fed raising interest rates about a year ago. I think that's the come to Jesus moment.
That's yeah. See, I don't understand. Like, at least from my perspective, historically, like trying to get a mortgage, it's never a fun process. It's never an easy process. For a small business owner, it's probably even worse, right?
Horrible.
Because if you're trying to get a mortgage, you're showing the tax returns, financials for your business, and most business owners, right, aren't taking home a big salary, right?
Yep.
Running a lot of expenses through their business.
As little as possible.
Right. So it's hard to get a mortgage. I just wonder, like, for these Airbnb guys, how they were doing it. Maybe that's a question more for Josh. Because it's like, you're saying, well, the come to Jesus moment was when the Fed started raising interest rates, right? But it's not like they were going every time they wanted to buy another Airbnb. They weren't going to the local B of A branch saying, like, well, I want to buy another one, are they? It's not.
No, I don't think so. I don't think their credit, for the most part, could even support more than 1 or 2 units.
Yeah. So how do they scale to like 100?
Yeah, so that's a question of how is this stuff even real?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ones that are able to create a corporate structure for these Airbnbs where the banks are lending them off of enormous equity built into these properties, it's a whole different category than this get-rich-quick scheme that we see.
Yeah. I don't think those
every
are
single day.
Okay. So those aren't the 25-year-old kids.
Yeah, unless the 25-year-old kids have 50-year-old parents.
Okay. With some sort of sophistication.
With a nice property management portfolio.
Okay. But these aren't to be clear, right? These are not the ones that we're seeing on Instagram where they're showing, the next 10 Airbnbs that they just bought, and they're like, stuffing it with IKEA furniture, right? They're not going to their local B of A to get funding, but on top of that, they're also not powered by a REIT.
Yeah.
That's not the level of sophistication.
No, definitely not.
And you don't want to be a REIT today anyway. Why?
I think the REITs are having some problems competing against high interest rates, right? The REITs are attractive stocks because they have very high dividend yields. And when you can earn 5% in your checking savings account, all of a sudden you don't need to buy a stock that can go up or down. Just park that cash somewhere safe.
Right.
So the demand for those stocks goes down, the prices come down. Nothing to do with the fundamentals of any business, just supply and demand.
So then,
this is getting very sophisticated.
No, and I don't mean to be. I find it interesting that, like, where a couple of years ago a REIT could attract investors. If I wanted to invest my money, right? I'm a high net worth individual, right? And I want to park my money somewhere where there's a good yield, but there's no potential downside. The REIT doesn't appeal to me. I can get a bond.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how people feel today.
Okay. Right. Okay. So,
and that's the same conversation that all these real estate folks and anybody else is having with their investors, right? Investors are seeking higher yields. And let's say you're a real estate guy and you're out there earning, I don't know, what kind of cap rates. And the cap rate is just the yield that a property earns you net of expenses. These cap rates are 4, 5, 6%. When interest rates are higher than cap rates, it's a big problem. Right? That means that, like Ryan Pineda says on his recent content that I've seen, there's no way you're making money every month, right? You're losing money every month holding on to these properties. So you're just hoping for appreciation, right? That's the only reason you're holding on to this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a cash flow game.
Right. It's an appreciation
It's an
game.
appreciation game, and it's a very long-term game. I think people are just optimistic right now. They think interest rates have peaked. Maybe, maybe not.
Wall Street Journal article this morning I was reading, and it said that the expectation is to lower rates 6 times, right?
Yeah. Crazy. That sounds wild, right? It's possible with an election coming up, right? Joe Biden's going to certainly pressure Jerome Powell to do everything in his power
Right.
to get those rates down and get people voting for him. I mean, why would anyone vote for a guy who is directly causing pain in their life? Right?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
It's funny because when we were young, and let's say when we worked at Fisher Investments together, we were always taught that historically during a lame duck presidency year, right, which is the 4th year of a presidency, not a lot gets done. Not a lot of right. Not a lot of wars being started.
Right. They're focused on getting reelected.
Right. Right. But it doesn't seem like that this year. We got a lot of wars going on. We don't need to get into the politics of it, but I think, with petroleum prices and stuff like that, you've got some exposure to problems in the Middle East when you can't send a shipping container, right, with oil, right, through a strait because you're being attacked by some rebels.
Yeah, with rockets. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get too political.
No, neither do I.
But it's it's an interesting world we live in. I think everyone's attention is going to very quickly be refocused in the next, maybe it's 4 months, maybe more like 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
Everybody's attention is going to be refocused to civil war, upheaval, Trump versus everybody else, right? I think that's how the media makes money.
Yeah.
And they're gonna create this David Goliath, this whole evil good, whatever you think is evil, whatever you think is good.
Yeah.
Right. You pick a side, and that's the most important thing: is which side are you on?
Yeah.
Who cares, right?
I pick
which side's
right. I pick the side of lower interest rates.
Yeah, and I think say what you want about Trump. Trump's definitely the side of lower interest rates.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, who knows? I mean, Biden might be
he was
also
threatening Jerome Powell over and over.
Right.
I'm gonna fire you.
Yeah. I'm gonna fire you if you don't lower interest rates. But I think, getting back to the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Getting back to that, like
influencers.
Yeah.
Where all of this came from, right? Like, what were we watching? Right. Like you and I started watching TikTok, right? A lot of this came from TikTok. I think you introduced me to TikTok first, and we got obsessed with it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd admit to that on camera, but
I love TikTok.
Yeah, see, I don't.
My favorite platform. It's better than Netflix.
I do not use TikTok. I know Cardiff as a company, we advertise on TikTok. So I guess shout out to Lev, who's our rep over there.
They just changed.
Oh, never mind, just changed. But in any event, right?
I wish it wasn't Chinese, but it's an amazing content platform. I mean, the best there is.
Yeah.
It's just too bad that there's all of this political and security stuff tied up in it.
Yeah. Well, a podcast for another day. But
yeah.
Getting back to it, like, we would see these. We would see these.
What categories did we see on TikTok that made us excited about this space? Like, what were we watching?
I mean, I think what drew me in to the podcast space, because we were dividing this up categorically, I think it was the real estate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think the get rich quick stuff is, I don't know. It's for me, I know they're charlatans.
Mm-hmm.
But I love watching it because for me, it's, I don't know if I have like a Schadenfreude syndrome or something where I love to watch people peak and then crash. Right.
It's very German.
Yeah. Like this is my, it's like, this is my Lamborghini.
It's a Jerry Springer thing, right? Like everybody wants to watch a train wreck.
Yeah. It's just, it's like, this is my Lamborghini. This is my Ferrari. This is my Rolls Royce. This is my mansion. I'm 25 years old. It's you see that and you're like, well, listen, I drive a Model Y Tesla.
Yeah.
Right. I own a company that's going to probably do $250 million this year, right, in 2024. And again, I drive a Model Y Tesla.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like I don't have a penchant for like things that are, as you well know, right, that like luxury things. I like vacations.
Sure.
I like experiences, but I do like to watch that type of content because there is a part of me that loves to see what happens when the polish rubs off,
Yeah.
right?
I'd like a more benign take on it. I think it's really good for 20-year-olds to see this content because as jaded 40-year-olds who have a lot of life experience,
Right,
we look at this, we already know how the story ends.
right,
We know everything that's going to happen. We know how long the feeling lasts from getting a new toy. We know how good it feels, right, to get the toy, and we know how much better it feels to get rid of the toy and think about the next toy, right? We understand how life works.
right.
But a 20-year-old, I don't want to rob them of these experiences. I don't want to rob them of learning on their own what it means to have an inanimate object seemingly give you pleasure, right? And learn how little it really does, right? Because sure, as parents, right, we can teach our kids, hey, you don't need this thing that you want to buy. It's going to last about 30 days and then you're going to throw it away,
Right.
right? But gosh, what amount of life experience in your 20s to go through that, learn it on your own, right? I wouldn't want to rob my kids of that. As long as it's in their 20s, not in their 30s and 40s, they're learning these lessons.
I get what you're saying, but it is a bit tongue in cheek because I do think that if your son or daughter, this is my opinion, but wanted to start a real estate empire at 23 by buying Airbnbs scattered across Southern California, and you're like, well, how are you going to manage it? Or you're like, I'm going to manage it all. And how are you going to furnish it? I'm going to do everything. And you're like, okay, well, and then what's your borrowing base? You're like, you.
Yeah.
And what happens when these don't cash flow? So I listen.
This reminds me of that Entourage episode where Turtle comes to Ari Gold and he pitches him on what, like a car wash or something? Or
I thought it was a limo service.
It's a limo service.
Yeah.
And he says, one day my kid is going to come to me and pitch me one of these ideas.
Yeah.
These idiotic ideas. And I'm going to have to say yes.
I'm going to have to say yes. So listen, I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily buy it, but
That's okay.
I would rob my children.
You would?
Yeah. I don't want my children like seeing something on Instagram that's trending.
Yeah.
Some charlatan pitching. You can, I have 100 doors. I have 200 doors. I have 400 doors. Listen to, slow and steady wins every single race, and it always has. One of my favorite long distance runners is a guy named Elliot Kipchoge. I don't know.
You have a favorite long distance runner?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, there's a lot of stuff I don't know about you.
Yeah. His name's Elliot Kipchoge, and he's broken the world record for running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't want to recognize his world record because, one, the race that he did, I think it was in Germany, it was flat. So there was no incline. And then the other reason
Is there an amount of incline required in a marathon?
Well, the other reason that they don't want to give him credit for breaking the world record was he had pacers.
What's that?
So he had other runners that would run next to him.
I hate running. I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
to help him keep pace, but also so that he could draft off them. Right.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
You can draft off people like cars?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I think in life, the parallel
That's crazy.
or the
You
analogy.
draft off humans.
Yeah. But I think the parallel or the analogy in life is, for my kids,
Mm-hmm.
right, teach them sort of financial responsibility. I don't want them to learn from Instagram. I don't want them to learn from what's trending. I want to be their pacer. So if they want to try to break a record, per se, I'm all about it, right? I'm all about supporting them, but I want to be their pacer. meaning that I want to try to help. I don't want to like pull strings,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be there shoulder to shoulder with them to help them
Mhm.
navigate some of the issues that otherwise they'd have to learn on their own. I'm not,
Yeah.
my or our business coach, right, always makes this point.
James.
Yeah, always makes this point, which is, mistakes in business are costly. They're very expensive. Once you pay for it, right, don't make the same mistake again. You've already paid for it once. And so it's like, for my kids, right, getting over revved
Mm-hmm.
on the ego of owning 100 Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's sheer ego. If you want exposure to real estate, a wise man once said, Dean Lyulkin, buy a REIT.
Yeah.
You want to own real estate? Buy a REIT, right? There's ways to do it, right? There's ways to do it where you could minimize ego and maximize profits. And so I think to kind of close the loop on this Airbnb thing, you don't see it anymore. And maybe that's because of interest rates, and maybe it's because they had a fund. Maybe they were looking for accredited investors, and it was $25,000 minimum. I don't know how these people were doing
It's
it.
oversaturated too.
Yeah,
I mean, we know people who are running Airbnbs in San Diego.
doing.
All of a sudden, you've got 17 competitors
Yeah,
right next to you, and they're all charging lower prices.
yeah. That's the thing. If you and I wanted to start one today
Mm-hmm.
with $50 million,
Mm-hmm.
we'll start one.
Yeah.
We'll start one, and I'm pretty sure we'll just hire people that understand how to do it, right? And then drive all these individual investors, right? We'll drive them out of the market.
Yeah.
And it's like when you have,
That's assuming that Airbnb is even the right decision on what to do with a piece of property, right? It's like
But
so
it-
many decisions.
right, but it's that lesson to be learned. I'm not getting into Airbnb. We're
Yeah.
not going to start a small fund so that we can own, single family homes or something like that. But, what they don't tell you is that the headwinds from the market dynamics, right, from interest rates to federal, state, and local laws that are prohibitive,
Mm-hmm.
right, even HOAs, right, that are prohibitive about
Short-term rentals.
short-term rentals,
Yeah.
right? There's all these headwinds that they face, but then there's also, right, large headwinds that aren't on their radar, that are in their blind spots, which are the Black Rocks of the world, right? These large investments that can come in and completely append whatever strategy they thought they had. And that's when you want to buy the Rolex and the used Rolls Royce and the 720 McLaren,
Oh, yeah.
because they go on discount. I remember,
When people are selling them,
yeah. Do you remember when crypto crashed?
they'll never sell them again. There'll never be another sale again.
If we don't buy it today, Dean, we're going to miss this
Just goes up.
opportunity. Yeah,
Just goes
it
up.
just goes up.
Yeah, but yeah, you asked me a question earlier about how are all these Airbnb people doing it? And it reminds me of my wife and kids and I living in an Airbnb between houses when we were having our floors done. We were renting an apartment for a month. That was an Airbnb. They were arbitraging, right? The spread between what the market could charge for that 3-bedroom apartment
Right.
for 30 days versus what the actual rent was.
Huh.
And if they were paying rent of say $4,000, they were charging me $8,000. But they owned nothing, right? And they had an Airbnb empire of apartments where they had negotiated these deals with the landlords,
Yeah, it's interesting.
right? That's how you have 100 Airbnbs.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the question you asked.
Yeah,
right?
that's
and that's how
genius.
you get 100 Airbnbs.
No, that's interesting.
It's 100 apartments you don't own.
Oh, interesting.
Right. I remember these influencers talking about this.
Hmm.
That's exactly what they were talking about.
Oh, there you go.
Need no cash.
Yeah. Sub
Crazy.
2.
And then you brought up Rolexes, which was my kind of big introduction to TikTok. I mean, I guess I kind of like watches in a weird way. I don't think they're all that amazing. But for some reason during COVID, right, you start watching this watch content.
Okay.
Why does TikTok have so much watch content? I don't know. You tell me. But what I found most interesting about the watch content
Yeah.
wasn't watches. It was the fact that you got to see essentially a soap opera or TV show about a bazaar. And if you guys don't know what a bazaar is, it's an open air market where people with accents yell at each other and negotiate things, in
It's
the
like a
former
luxury
Soviet Union.
swap meet.
Luxury swap meet. And 47th Street in New York
Yeah.
is filled, right? It's the Diamond District. It's filled with these watch dealers who, prior to COVID, were weird, shady characters like Adam Sandler's character in what's that movie?
Something Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Shout
Thank
out
you,
to
Lev.
Lev.
Thank you, Lev. Uncut Gems, right? You got these characters, right, that are doing really shady stuff. But all of a sudden, TikTok creates stars
Yeah.
out of these characters and helps them to create not just a personal brand, but enhances their business. And I think we saw that and said, wow, I mean, that's real, right? And all of a sudden, everyone knows who the Watch King is, right? He's a Jewish guy with a ponytail. And all of a sudden, everybody knows him. He's a ponytail and shaves head, right? All the sides of his head are shaved. And you watch live negotiations with this guy, and you see the interactions with customers. You see the interactions between the dealers. You see the middlemen running around, and all of a sudden, you're drawn into the drama of business. And I found that fascinating that TikTok and social media could do this.
Yeah. Well, I think, the algorithm very quickly, right, learns what you like.
Yeah.
I'm not so interested in watches. I was more interested in the Real Housewives of Orange County, but in a business context, right? So
Because they were the real estate type people.
yeah, I think that
Yeah.
that was what was trending. That was the interesting part. And you talk about like how we got into, or we come back to the point of how we got into podcasting. And I think it's, you start to see all these categories of podcasts,
Yep.
right?
And not just podcasts, but just influence, right? Because some of these self-help people and strong men don't even have podcasts. They're just talking into a camera.
Yeah,
Right.
that's more of like the sales trainers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
They have six packs and they know everything.
yeah. And there's something to be said of, sort of a tidy home is a godly home. You ever heard that phrase?
No.
It's one of those things where it's like, if your business is in order,
Mm-hmm.
then, logically the other items, right, are in order as well.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
I think so.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah. Like if, for example, right, we run Cardiff, which is about to celebrate its 20th year in business.
That's crazy.
Super wild. And we run it with the help of very intelligent people who are very driven and are very passionate about building a company. And we're lucky that we hire people who are smarter than us.
Hope so.
Yeah. We are very lucky that that's who we recruit. And every year, right, just adding more and more intelligent and passionate people to run that. And I think, with respect to our personal lives, it's important to have that in order too. And so, they say never meet your heroes, and I'll kind of explain why I went off on this small tangent, which is just that you see these podcasters, influencers like you were referring to. And listen, for the younger generation, they're impressed by the allure of what these people are selling or what these people are talking about, and the shine, right? The glimmer, the Hollywood aspect of the character of who they are.
Do you think Tony Robbins is a character?
It's a great question. I think he's so deep into Tony Robbins that he believes it.
Yeah. He's beyond. He is in character.
Yeah.
In character.
Yeah, I think so.
He's-
Yeah, I think so. And some of these others are aspirational characters that want to get there. And I think, in business, if you surround yourself with people that want to support your vision and want to contribute to your vision, because I think in life, it is the same as in business, people tend to support that which they help to create. And it's a fancy phrase, but all it means is that if you're building a business and you're relying only on your vision to shape how the business scales, and you're leaving key personnel out of the recipe, right?
Mhm.
Then you will find out very quickly that the business will stall out, the business won't scale. You'll have your human resource, right, moments where people are leaving, you're feeling desperate, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think-
It's super interesting. I mean, we see that in our business, right? This idea of including more junior people in decision making.
You know,
And when they feel like it was their idea, guess what? Everything performs better.
yeah, everything performs better. And I think going back to this influencer thing, I think these guys who are chasing the Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
right, character.
So many of them.
Yeah, I think when you chase that, if you're surrounding yourself with people who believe in this vision, then it's very possible to, I don't want to say fall into a trap, but fall into a paradigm where you end up becoming a character because that's the vision, and then everyone surrounding you are supporting that same vision, and they're
Yep.
shaping that vision. And the vision is shaped very finely, very acutely, very strategically, and tactically through social media. So, you have these influencers that will teach sales departments how to sell something. Car sales, doesn't matter. Solar sales, roofing sales. And they're creating endless amounts of content. And that's shaping the vision of that character and of that company. And I think before you know it, you've got a guy like Dean at home subscribing and following and liking and commenting and sharing. And that person, in very short order, has become an influencer.
Yeah, it's fast, right? We've observed this. And it's
It's-
super fascinating to watch, and it's
Yeah.
part of the reason why we're here, right? Why there are cameras and microphones, because we think this is the future, right? This is how you conduct business
Right.
in the in the 2020s.
Yeah.
You can't conduct business any longer without personal brands, without exposing yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, right, to a lens.
Hmm. I think our mission's a little bit different, right? Like my vision for the podcast is I'm interested at this point in my life meeting other business owners that have made the transition from employee to employer and then have scaled that business. And I want to encourage people to tell that story, even if the story is riddled with mistakes and hurdles and failures and what could have been. I like to hear those stories, and I appreciate people being vulnerable about what mistakes they've made over time, right? And how they now enjoy some type of success. And I think,
And they're great stories.
yeah,
That's what we love it.
yeah.
We love these stories.
And so I think that's the dichotomy between what you see on Instagram, which is the buffed out, polished version, right, of reality, right? And so what I'm trying to bring content wise is the more realistic encapsulation in short order of how a business owner has built a business, right, over the last 10 to 20 years, and then sharing those mistakes, those failures, those hurdles, how they overcame them, and despite the odds, built a brand. I think that, that's the mission for the podcast. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not like clairvoyant. I don't know how people are going to react to it.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Beautiful journey.
And I think that's one thing that young people have a hard time, because I do remember myself being in that same
Mm-hmm.
situation. you feel like you're always out of time as a young person. I have to get this. I have to do that. Right? It's now or never. Right? It's a very, they're very limited.
Yeah, because
on-
you have less perspective on time
Yeah.
when you're younger,
Right.
and when you're older, you see that time is a very different concept than you thought it was 20 years ago.
Right. All they have is time.
Yeah.
But they don't realize it. And I think once you realize that time is a limited commodity, right? Then that's when you start to double down on being prodigious. I don't know if that's a great word to use, but that's when you start really cranking out, right? That's when you really start to maximize what you can fit into one day. Because you realize, like, once you're married and have kids, and kids have sports and tutoring and parochial school
Yep.
and regular school and the commute back and forth, that's when you start to realize, like, wait a second, how do I buy the time back? And so I think for a lot of people, to kind of close the loop on this conversation, I think for a lot of people at home that are stuck in the matrix, that want to escape the matrix, they're looking to make that transition from employee to employer.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a variety of content to watch on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And I think the blessing of the algorithm is that if you're looking for inspirational content, right, it's out there. It's going to find you algorithmically. And
It's a ton of it.
I think, like Jeff Fenster said, right, you just want to drop a bunch of lines off the fishing boat, right? Don't limit yourself. Drop a bunch of lines off the fishing boat and see what bites. And so, the podcasting aspect, I think it exists to give inspiration to people, to give them exposure to something that, like, we didn't have,
Yeah. Not
right?
at
When
all.
we were younger.
We didn't know who to ask anything.
Yeah.
Where to turn.
Yeah. And so the content is out there. If you want to learn to do something, the internet is where you go to learn it.
Yeah.
You can have a digital mentor. Listen, I'll tell you something. I don't have a coaching platform. And I know that's like a popular thing that's trending on Instagram, where you have these influencers,
Mm-hmm.
that supposedly have unlocked some sort of secret, and they're willing to share it with you for a price. I think, caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. Sort of, make sure that if you're going to invest in this coaching platform, that they actually have built something. But I get DMs every day, all day, on the weekends, right? Do you offer coaching? And I don't even respond to those. Lev, we don't respond to those. Yeah. We don't respond to those because, one, I don't have a platform. But two, I haven't even given it a thought of how that might look. And so if you are looking to make that transition, right, and become a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
the landscape that exists, right, for inspiration is on Instagram, is on TikTok, is on YouTube. My only advice would just be patience, right? Don't just, kick the tires on the investment. Don't be impetuous.
And
Don't-
diversify opinions, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Look at all the different flavors, right? We talked today a bunch about how we need to empower the people that work with us, right? And let them shine. But at the same time, and so you can hear these voices on social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? Talking about how let it be their vision, right? Let it be their way of thinking that drives everything forward for the business.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you're a young person and you're watching content and you want to understand what it takes to build a really large business,
Right.
do not fool yourself into thinking that the person, whether they be male or female, whether it be one CEO or two CEOs, whether it be a board, what are these folks like? Well, a wise man once told me that this is a combination of the mayor of a city and the coach of a professional sports team. And it better be both. So don't get all kumbaya about what building a business is like.
Right.
Touchy feely, warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's not the YMCA.
Right? It's not the YMCA, right? These people, right? I mean, the folks we know that have companies that are doing $1 billion or more in sales. This is the combination of a military drill sergeant, Jimmy Hoffa of the Teamsters,
Yeah.
right? And some sort of crazy NFL head coach, right? The most intimidating NFL head coach
Sure.
that you can imagine.
Bill Belichick.
Bill
R.I.P.
Belichick,
R.I.P.
right? That guy from Pittsburgh that used to coach there. I forget what his name is. But yeah, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And so you have to consume a variety of content and be open to seeing things from different perspectives.
I think the kumbaya thing, right? I think that's a really good point. Because I think once you create a brand, you're the visionary, you're the thought leader, then you hire early adopters. After the early adopters are kind of like the soldiers. And then even within any organization, you also have the naysayers, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of like the structure of any like high functioning company. But I think what a lot of times happens is nobody wants to work for the visionary. Nobody wants to work for the founder because the founder is that type A personality that's hard to get along with. And it's a founder's syndrome. It occurs so many different times in life, in business. Historically, there's endless amounts of examples from Steve Jobs to even, what's his name at Nike?
Yeah, Phil Knight.
Phil Knight.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've all exited, right? Their
Yeah. Yeah.
the companies they founded at this point.
And I think there's a reason that they exit. And the reason that they exit is to make room for the leaders that can take the business, right, to the next stage, the next part of that evolution. And then they work on polishing their image. And that's where the kumbaya...
And we see that every day with Bill Gates, for example.
Yeah. Softening the image.
Right.
Softening the image. And I think, listen, this is the normal maturity curve of any man or woman, where it's like it's do or die in their youth, right? It's grow at all expenses. It's revenue, 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 revenue. Top line, top line, top line, top line. I don't care about profitability. And then eventually, right, the orchestra doesn't want to play for the orchestrator, right? He finds himself
Conductor.
for the conductor. Thank you. So eventually,
He's a
right?
little bit of a lunatic.
Yeah,
right?
but eventually the orchestra doesn't want to play for the conductor. And that's when the conductor takes a bow, right? Gracefully exits and welcomes.
Or doesn't.
Yeah, or and then welcomes and then welcomes the next conductor that can take over the orchestra and manage the smiles and cries and manages the company and gets it to scale to that next level. So I mean that's your example, right? Of don't fall for this kumbaya deception of who large business owners seem to be on social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And don't fall for the personal growth, these seminars and these epithets, right? And all these sayings that somehow this is going to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Also be open to the idea that that if you're really going to take this challenge on, you better be prepared to be not a cheerleader, but the coach and the mayor.
Right. Okay. Well, let's end it there. It was fun.
That was super fun.
Let's do this again.
We'll do it again
Oh, man.
many times.
We'll see you guys next time.